Hola a todos. Gracias por venir a esta charla. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the AWRC. It's a pleasure to have so many of you here in the room and also those online. This is not an opportunity for me to show off my lack of Spanish skills. However, I am going to try and do a little bit of an introduction in Spanish, partly out of respect for Carlos, but mainly because I lost a bet with Nick Hamilton, who is sat on the front row, about Duolingo. Whichever one of us lost our streak first agreed to do a presentation in the language we were learning, and I lost. So here we go. Muchas gracias, Carlos, por presentar su trabajo. Tengo muchas ganas de escuchar sus ideas sobre cómo nuestro entorno puede ayudar a fomentar la actividad física. Thank you, Carlos, for agreeing to present today. I'm very much looking forward to your ideas about how the environment can influence our physical activity. Carlos, gracias por dar interés y participación en la AWRC. Ha sido un placer tenerte con nosotros este mes. Siempre serás bienvenido aquí. Carlos, thank you for your interest and engagement in the AWRC. It's been a pleasure to host you over the last month. I hope you've had a good time, and you are always welcome back here. Te cedo la palabra.
Well, he's actually done it. So it's like we're good to start. Actually, I think he set the level so high, I'm not gonna be able to reach the same. All right. Hello anyone. Good morning. My name is Carlos Lahoz. I am a lecturer and researcher, and I am an architect at Madrid's Rey Juan Carlos University, King's Juan Carlos. And I've been here for the last month, and I really have to start my presentation by really thanking the organization. It's been a pleasure, from the people in the front desk till the director's office. You've really given me the best time. I mean, I have no words to thank how well I've been feeling since I arrived. So I mean, even it's been sunny all the time. I haven't had a single day of proper rain in England, so everything has just worked perfectly. So well, thank you again to all of you. Well, as I said, I'm gonna be, as Rob said, I'm gonna be talking about active cities. That more or less for you, all of you know are related to the concept, but for those who are not, basically we call active cities those cities that promote, foster a healthy and active culture in the places where people live, work, play, stay, etc. No? And we're going to be talking about active cities in very different ways. We're talking about from the practical point of view, and also from the side of the research, which is kind of like a combination of what my life is about. No? I've been a practitioner. I'm still a practitioner all my life. So these two companies, we've won many competitions. We've done a lot of work in in Southern Europe, but also in East Europe, Middle East, Northern of Africa. And I've had the opportunity of doing many projects. This is, for example, an image of the city of Sariguren that we had the opportunity to design and actually see built. Is an aerial satellite picture of it. It's in Google Earth, and it's a really big pleasure to see your stuff in Google Earth, I have to admit. And we've done a lot of planning, and urban design. This is, for example, the university campus of Alicante, which was the first car-free campus to be designed in Spain. And then we've done a lot of architecture, all sorts, but specialized very much the last years in the sports architecture. So this is my two sides: urban town planning plus sports architecture, like in which the domains in which I've worked professionally. Then as faculty, I've been doing I've been a lecturer to several universities, but mainly in the last years in Universidad de Juan Carlos, and also as the twin institution, which is like a poor sibling that in Spain, which is research center in sports science, CIDE in Rey Juan Carlos. We're growing space, but I think with a lot of talented people, mainly from sports. I am the only one in the whole team that doesn't wear a tracksuit on daily basis. And but fortunately, in a few years, we will be reaching your excellence, your level of excellence. Well, this brief presentation about me. It's the explanation on why I'm working in this active city thing. It's a mix between architecture and active life, architecture, sports, planning, architecture. All these things converge into cities and physical activity, no? Regarding health. Well, around the year 2015, there were big elections in Spain. There was a special occasion because it was the first big elections after the big crisis, and there was a lot of things that wanted to be changed. Well, people, those enthusiastic moments in which society thinks that they can change for once, then the reality turns back, and at the end you can do what you can. But we had a very good moment, and those administrations started thinking that, well, they wanted to put a turn on the way they used to do things, no? And they asked us from several different administrations on how to approach including active physical activity, sports, as part of their planning process or the city strategies. Well, we did a first attempt. There were actually nobody doing this in Spain. And since we were in sports and we were in architecture and we were there, we happened to be chosen. The reality was that. So, and we were chosen by the theme as well. So we started being interested on that, and we started working. We did a very first project in a huge development that's still being developed in Spain at the moment. Will be for the 25 following years. This is 7 kilometers and like 6 miles long. It's the biggest development happening in Europe at the moment. And they asked us how to include physical activity as part of the design process. So we came up with a very rough thing, but it was a first start for us to really getting involved. After that, we started getting petitions from different municipalities on how to include the physical activity in their town planning processes, the strategic design processes, etc., etc. We've done several of them, and we're just going to show you one. It's a very small municipality. It's 25,000 people, but it has certain similarities to some areas of Sheffield. The topography, it's difficult. Let's say it's very green. It's very it's got a very important set in terms of landscape. It's very rich, and it's a very wealthy place. And then it has very many problems because the city is divided by a big freeway that is close to what you would have here in England, like the M1, that actually split the city in two separate parts. Well, we asked, there was this young team that had just recently been elected, and they asked us whether they could, if they could transform the city in an active city. Well, they didn't know what it was. We either. We knew a little bit more, but not too much more. And we started thinking about what meant to be an active city. So we did a first research about whether this could be applicable to their space in a study that what we call there's a study of aptitude and attitude. That means if they could and they had the resources and mental resources to be able to tackle such a an important project or a different one, and we finally stated that we could do it. And we just draw the main guidelines that we were to develop in the years to come. This was the time, more or less, when we started doing the project. And when we were to actually went about the time to launch it, well, the pandemic happened. And that happened it had two effects. The first one is that it was kind of the reaffirmation of what these people had thought previously. That means that we need to be our spaces to be suited for physical activity to make us healthier than we are, and that was a good thing. At the same time, it was good because we were locked and we had time to write. So we could put all our thoughts together, and all the things that we would have not been able to actually draw, design a methodology in order to do this kind of projects. We had time, and we finished the book during the time of the pandemic. Actually, the book was kind of like a psychologist that kept us all with clear minds, no? And we have the book is a research, and then it's also reflection about what cities should be like, if cities should be like. We have spotted 15 strategies. I will not go over all of them, but I will just mention a couple of them that may be a little different. Or probably the ones that you have not get accustomed to, we are not more related to them. I'm talking about, for example, the universalization of public space. That means making public space publicly accessible to anyone. This is the case of Medellin, in which, in order to create a public transport for people living in the slums, in the hills of the city, and making them having them able to reach the city center and to access culture, good works, etc., etc., there was no way to do it. Well, there was the response that they, after thinking a lot and being really short in budget, they came on building a system of cable cars to link from the town, the city hills to the city valley, with the result of these cable cars that actually connect with the main tram and metro system. So people from the most deprived areas could actually reach what the rest of the society had. No? Good example of universalization. It's not only about physical accessibility, but it's also about breaking all the logics. No. And also in the stops, for example, they have created great amounts of very interesting sports facilities, for example, or cultural facilities, very well designed on the other hand, with very good, very smart approaches. Talking about another strategy, which is basically to temper the traffic. We call it to modulate because it's also more human. It's about lowering the voice and knowing what to do in every occasion. And I'm just going to bring the case of Barcelona, which they're doing at the present time. We all know, because it's famously well known throughout the world, the Barcelona's grid. What they have done is instead of there are roads surrounding every block. So what they've done is a very simple but magical idea, which is just putting traffic through every 9 blocks, putting traffic in the outside, and only letting neighbors drive in, and freeing all public space, the streets, to transform them into squares, etc., etc. So after that, Barcelona is multiplied by 3 its public space. And right now, this is an intersection in Barcelona. So right now they're in the trials. They have done a couple of mock-ups. They're seeing what's the result, and they've just put some planters and benches, and they have painted the floor very cheap. So if it works, they will go probably into doing a proper pedestrian sign. So it's a good way of a good strategy that the city is following. In the case of Barcelona, we've done that with other 15 strategies that we think that are used by the cities that want to transform themselves into a more active places. Well, after that, it was a time of the pandemics. The whole thing about physical activity made sense. So picking up the project that we did before with this small municipality, they tell us, yes, so it's okay, we can do it, let's do it. So they asked us to do a master plan about how to really transform physical activity, not into a side thing that would go along with other things. No, to be actually the main backbone of the whole city's strategy. That was a different approach, no? From being something that you do on the side, from actually transforming in the main axis of the city planning strategy. Well, I'm not going to go into the plan. I'm just going to go into certain aspects which I think they're interesting. Well, with the participation process, I always like to find this thing that it's a very small thing, but it makes sense as a good summary of the whole project. This is a part of the participation with the society, the participation process, and all the different things that we did. But we made a small puzzle for children, because part of the problem is that children didn't know, even they didn't know how the city was. They didn't know the other neighborhoods, because everything was split by streets, and they have never been on the other side of their neighborhoods. So they were using the car for everything, because it was important. No, it's not only that it was physically difficult, but it actually they didn't know about it. So we started by making a puzzle and putting it through the post all the homes, so people would actually build the puzzle of their city. That's basically what we ended up doing with the master plan at the end. This is part of the participation process, some images. And I'm just going to point this specific aspect, which I think is quite relevant, because it joins the two aspects. One is the design with the research. We designed a set of 30 indicators specifically thought for active living, divided in 5 categories. And these indicators, they allowed us to value, not only to give an index for the whole city, which at the end, that wasn't really helpful, because it's a matter of creating a ranking, and we weren't actually interested in comparing our city to other, but comparing it to itself. But that allowed us to actually know place by place what was happening in the area. So what you would see that there are some areas. This is a very normal indicator, which includes analyzes public transport. And you see that these areas in orange, that means it is covered, and the areas in gray, that it means that it's not covered. So we actually knew that it was not covering that area and the amount of people that were living in each one of those. That allowed us, and we did that with every single aspect that we thought that it could interfere with physical activity or active living. No, well, things that we discovered that, for example, loads of people were using the stop of the another municipality while using in theirs, because they couldn't actually reach. There was no way for them to reach the ones in which they were paying taxes on. So many things popped out from that research. No. This is, for example, private and public sports places. So these are more or less conventional, but we do also some unconventional research. For example, this is architectural continuity, a place to be walked to, a place to have walkability. That means to be suited for people to walk. You need somehow to have an active ground floors, and to have certain facades facing the street, because if you're walking in the middle of, for example, in the gardens, you might be scared, or there might not be as much of public lighting, etc., etc. So we did an approach to actually measuring what was the physical architectural continuity of the whole area. Or, for example, we did the connectivity of this of the green system. Well, the city was very green, but at the end, it had two very good systems, one on top and one on the other side of the M1. M1, it's ours is N6, but I will call the M1. And the two of them weren't related at all. So, well, we actually, through actually measuring the value of this connectivity, we spotted the right place in which we would actually make a connection, how this whole thing would transformed. Actually, we presented this procedure for the UE funds, and we proved mathematically something that normally is proved by, it will solve a problem. No, we said the problem is going to be solved by this amount. No, we actually got funded, was more than 1 million euros to actually create a acquisition cost. But more important, we got the permit to actually block for one day the road to be able to construct that bridge. No? Well, research about all these things, this has to be about walkability. So at the end, we had an index of all of these areas, but most important, we knew specifically in each part of the city was restricting people from being active. Well, this is a diagnosis that for just being talking about physical activity, it gives you a lot of detail. That's what it was really important, not the index before. No? Well, after that, we did a plan. The plan was, I'm not going to go into that, but it was reinforcing a system of ties that would vinculate some neighbors to others. There was a whole amount of these images about that, about projects. And I'm going to show you some. We had 700 projects. I'm going to show you just a few of them. This is about, for example, installing a cafeteria on a natural space because it wasn't used, because there was nothing to do there. So if we wanted people to actually use a space, we needed to create a gate to it. No, so sometimes the approach for making people more active, it's to do things which is completely anti-intuitive. It's creating a cafeteria in which you go and sit down and drink beer, for example. No? But at the end, people go to visit those specific sites. No? Or what this got to do with the biking infrastructure, or even to refurbishment of some commercial areas that had been degraded, for example, with all this clutter with in terms of image, and we wanted to make it more attractive for the population. So they would actually go walking to certain spots to, for example, buy bread. No? Of course, the refurbishment of several streets of the city and transforming them into places only dedicated to cars, for places for pedestrians, or even creating new roads. Because, for example, we discovered that parts of the problem of the city not being able to be active, it's because there was not a clear access to the freeway from the village. So loads of people would travel around the internal roads of the streets at high speeds just to go and reach the M1 to go to work in Madrid early in the morning. So children, for example, couldn't go walking. So what we did is create escape route to get clear that very early in the morning, cars would go through that route, enter the M1, not bothering anyone, but only one way. But then in the evening, they could pass around the city and stay there, maybe stop to buy something and foster the local shops and the local life. No, so again, sometimes it's very anti-intuitive to do things that to promote active living. You have to sometimes foster the car. Okay. Well, thanks to that and the quite success of these kind of small interventions, we were asked by the government to include into the Spanish urban agenda, which is the only document in which municipalities base their strategy, their planning strategy. It's the only document that is homogeneous throughout the country, because in Spain the regions have the ultimate word on planning, but there's still a nationwide strategy, which is this. And which is very good that if municipalities need funding from the UE, they have to comply with this. So it's very effective to be part of this urban agenda. So we've been asked to include the concept of active living into this urban agenda, and we're in the process. And this is part of the collaboration that we are doing with AWRC, that you guys have more experience in policies. And well, this is the document. It's a very complex that deals with everything that have to do with town planning. And what we're including, we're doing an assessment to include specific things to promote this physical activity. Well, I'm just going to go very quickly on the what we did, or the methodology that we're following. We have spotted certain 10 topics, and we've done an assessment of these 10 topics, which are the essential things that we think. And we've run the analysis, or we've screened the whole agenda through this view. No? And we have seen that the different the framework, there's a strong impact of around 40%, and 23 have no impact of the actual measures that they take. That makes it like 77% of the whole document has a very important impact. But at the same time, 50% of the important themes or the essential themes that we've spotted about physical activity are not very well taken care of. So we have to work onto these specific things. And we've done an assessment of the lines of action. These are some images, probably you could have brought them. Well, the thing is that, for example, well, as I said, we have examined each one of these 300 lines of action, valued them, and see whether we had to create it additional or not, with a very thorough process. And so at the end, we determined that we were going to propose new lines of action, varying from 39 to 62. We've come out finally with a number of 55. And we've done the same with the indicators that are proposed by the urban agenda at the moment. They have 72. We have proposed 9 new indicators for the whole country, and to be homogeneously measured throughout the whole country. And also those are the ones that are going to be used by the European consultants that actually approve the funds. So it's not nonsense, no? And well, we've come out with what were the needs, and we're going to design 8 specific indicators on physical activity or active cities. And well, we're right now in the process of actually designing the new lines of action. We're thinking of 53, 55, as I said. We are basing this new lines of action into 6 documents. Sport England document is quite a main protagonist character of the whole design. And well, this is kind of like the genomic code of what we're using, separating the different fields. And well, this is just a sample of some of them that we're doing, and they're going to be included as this regulatory document that is so important for the strategic planning in the country. And well, here is just a small sample of the indicators that we're thinking on, and we're designing at the present moment, and we would hopefully finish them by sometime in December this year. And well, this is the final result. 53 new lines of action and 8 new indicators in total. And I think I'm done with this. Sorry for my English in certain things. I'm not very accustomed to presenting this research stuff, especially when I don't even sometimes know how to even explain them in Spanish. But it's I've tried my best. Thank you very much.
We've got a bit of time for some questions. So does anyone want to kick us off? What, Nick?
Yeah, I think so. You're influencing policy, and you are this purse strings, the money is being controlled, which puts you in a great position to say, right, this is what you have to do. Unless you do, you're not getting the money. How does the policy get translated into new spaces that people live in? What's that kind of the route for understanding for the people who actually building the cities and the towns and the houses?
Yeah, the thing is that it's an orientation. I mean, that document, Urban Agenda, is not mandatory. So it's not mandatory for the whole country. It's a reference that municipalities have in order to be helped when they're designing their own strategic plans. So it's something that is there. It's not mandatory. But if we want to get funded by the UE in special projects, they need to at least have that document, refer to the main document. So it's a framework that is there. And of course, some cities might not be interested on going further into this process of becoming more active, so to say. but they have it there. And when they're designing their strategy, they go through the document and they say, oh, so this idea would be great for my place. So it's like a menu that they pick if they want. So it's not mandatory for them. And they're valued on the aspect in which they have made the project on. So it will be a reference, it will be an indicator. It's a kind of a self-indicator because they propose to be measured through that indicator. It's not that it's compulsory or mandatory to fulfill that standard for all the municipalities. It's just if they wanted to be valued on that sense, not for all of them. Okay. So, and then it takes time because I think the important thing is to be there, to be where the main things happened, and eventually more people, it will become more. It's the same thing with sustainability. Right now, at least in Spain, nobody puts a doubt on it. It's something that it's just given. I remember when we did this plan that I showed you about Sariguren, that was the first eco city in Spain. People were thinking, like, what? Eco sustainability? What is that about? And now it's just like the rain. It's something that you don't question. It's like the weather. Sustainability is there. You count on it. Same thing will happen. I wish eventually with physical activity, especially in a Spain-like country, which it's aging very quickly, and we have a problem with demography. Thank you.
James? Thank you, Carl. Great. As I've been around about Attica as an area, I've noticed you out and about a bunch of time, things like that, walking around, so you have a look at the area and see what it's about. I sit on something called the Attica Area Board, which is a local board which no roofing area sits on. Same board, and we have this conversation a lot about what's happening within the area, how we can improve that, how planning can have an effect on that. I've seen lots of ideas come through. From what you've seen in this area, what do you think the opportunities are?
Well, there are tons of things. I mean, like there's a lot of stuff that could be done, because also there is a good a good how do you call it, base material. I mean, you have very good conditions to start with. You have some deficits as well, but very good conditions to start with. And the thing is that although the best thing about what I see in Ottercliff is that many things are happening and there are many opportunities. There are areas which are extremely consolidated. Are changing things there, it's impossible. But this area is full of opportunity. It's being done again. After it was perfectly settled 150 years ago, and it was finished, all of a sudden by the early 20th century has to reinvent itself. Well, you have the best opportunity. Not all the cities have that opportunity because there's so much stuff to do, so much things going on. And I don't think it's an extra effort in terms of money. It's an extra effort in terms of thinking and coordinating. But you've got it there because the whole city, I mean, you see, well, actually, you come out of here, you see a crane and you see places being transformed everywhere in this area. So I think you're in the best possible moment to do it. So definitely, I would say the occasion it's the best out of Ottercliff. Definitely, the occasion for the city of Sheffield, it's just perfect.
So it's a document that we have to deliver up to 3,000 new homes in the next 10 to 15 years over 6 areas. And that's been funded through Homes England. So I think I'll get an opportunity to talk.
Oh, absolutely. Wonderful. Yeah, I would be glad to take a look at it. Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if the problem is when things are consolidated and this to get the inputs while things are done, I mean, it's what it should be like, no? And as again, from my experience, being in the right place in the right time, it's just what matters. Because then once the documents are approved, it's legal in legal terms, etc. It's a nightmare. So if you're in that process, you're in the right time. It's better to delay. Yeah, but then that would trigger all the things, no?
So David would like to know, to what extent does the successful implementation of active travel policies depend on the integration of good public transport networks in planning of urban areas?
Well, I mean, I think if I understood the question well, I think that's the two vectors which are the most important ones. As on the one side has to do with where you locate it, and the other side how do you price it, or how often it is the service. So I think it's crucial, no? I mean, like integrated planning and um, and um, and transport, so, public transport, as I understood, is just the main thing probably that could happen to cities today. It's if there is something in which we can do to make things more active to begin with, it's taking care of mobility. That's the main issue, and then the rest. And mobility, it's the key to everything that you can do, not only regarding health issues or active issues, but also regarding, in general, planning. I mean, if not to count on physical activity, it's mobility. Our time is about mobility, probably, because it determines everything. It determines sustainability. It determines social segregation. It depends. It talks about everything. That's why I talked about universalization before. You would think about making everything accessible. You would think about people with reduced mobility to begin with. But yeah, of course, you have to take care of that. But what really changes universalization of spaces and making accessible through public transport? That's the key, no? So yeah, crucial.
When we were talking about the presentation beforehand, and you shared the example of the one-way street out of the city, I thought it was a really interesting idea that people tend to leave an area at the same time.
Yeah.
And yet they come back into an area at different times.
Yeah.
And therefore, understanding how the patterns of behaviour in a place is really important to designing interventions that can increase physical activity. And I think in the UK, in that instance, what sort of consultation did you have with the communities and with the people that would be engaging with this process? Was that intensive, or was that did that not exist?
Good. Our tradition, it's not based on participation like yours is. Yours is very civilized in that sense. Ours is a bit more dictatorial, kind of. But that's our planning background. Things are done because someone has decided. First you do, then you ask. Okay, but that's changed in the late years, and there are consultation processes throughout different stages of planning, but definitely they are not the same as yours. Yours planning is much more about an agreement. In our case, planning is about setting a common rules and then strictly following them without any changes. Okay. The problem is that those rules probably were decided 40 years before. And they get decided only every 20, 30, 40 years. So it's a difficult one. But in this case, the one that you see, for example, in Torrelodones, this new government that entered, they were citizens, not inscribed to any political party, independent. And it was all throughout the time. We have public votes like the ones in Switzerland, in the sense that they would leave the polling thing on the street without nobody taking care about them, and people would leave their opinion and their votes about everything, the single thing that we've done it, and we have periodically had to submit our advances to public opinion. So yes, it was extremely integrated, but we even had to try to do co-design processes, and the result is that they were very limited in their use. So yes, to gather opinion about what people thought about that and some inputs about how things were important and what things should be done. But we tried some co-design process, that mean actually designing with people, and our experience is that it weren't very helpful, not for them, not for us. So it's more about offering opportunities, offering things, and actually converging through dialogue with them, but actually offering the opportunity so they would choose. Because at the end, the participation process, you're asking society to do your work, kind of, and it's a complicated one. And not people have the same level of implication. So at the end, not even the most implicated people they didn't have the time themselves. So, and when they were really implicated in many occasions, they had like very particular demands that weren't, let's say, very helpful for the rest of the society, but these were their own interests. So it's a tricky one. But yes, definitely we had participation all throughout, even though we didn't have to in this strategic planning, but we did, yes.
Max.
For example, the Barcelona slide you had when there was that block.
Yeah.
And you've changed that to just traffic around the edge and made the kind of squares in the middle. When change like that has occurred, what has been the response to that? Have people been positive about that, or in some cases will people initially?
Always initially against. Always totally against. So that's a nightmare. Always. That's time after time. No, they're gonna ruin businesses. It's gonna be because parking is crucial for shops. And 2 years afterwards, they are the best, the most, the biggest defenders of that transformation. I've seen that happen time after time after time. So yes, it's I mean, it is, personal experience of that. I don't have that much in the case of Barcelona, but as a country experience, we have loads of them, and it's always the same story. No complete opposition at the beginning, and happiness, total happiness especially from the people from the businesses up 2 years afterwards. It's always the same thing. The only people that really get to bother, I mean, they're bothered, they're very concerned afterwards, and they oppose afterwards, and they're not very happy. And sometimes the neighbors, because it's so successful, that they don't want to have many more people around anymore. So it's the opposite. Of course, it's not something that you can do everywhere because it doesn't make sense. But in certain areas that would actually make, for example, it's very tough to create new public spaces, but some areas really demand it. How do you do it? You can do it through that kind of transformation. That means in specific sites, you pedestrianize an area, and so you serve the rest of the community, which is lacking that thing. But you have to establish certain sacrifices. But the overall thing, normally, when it's well thought through, it's normally very good. What I recommend, though, it's not to go into a proper pedestrianization or transformation with really high budgets from the beginning. It's better to do something that it's low profile, test it, and if it works, go into a further phase, and then you do proper rechanging of the traffic. Because if you try something and it doesn't work, you reverse it. You haven't done anything, Because what is important is a space, and you see how people start interacting with the space. If it works well, then you change for a proper granite pavement. No? But no, you don't do it beforehand.
To make that argument. So, just in terms of kind of monitoring, evaluating that change, the economics, the well-being, life satisfaction, health.
I don't have them myself, but there are hundreds of those experiences done. I can look for the data for you. Definitely, yes, there are loads of them. Yeah, in the case of Barcelona, it's very well thought. I mean, it's a very famous thing. It's already there's loads of research about it. And in the case of Barcelona, it stopped. That they threw 3 different mock-ups with big portions of the city being requalified. And then the government changed, and the new political party that entered, they were independent party before, the ones that launched this process. The new political party, which is a traditional one, which is a Labour Party, has stopped the process. Why? Nobody knows why. But I'm sure if the government changes or things when they relax a little bit, the process will continue, mainly because it's been the neighbors that are the ones that are backing it up, and especially the people from the shops. They want the space to be pedestrian. They don't want the cars anymore because it's proved to be much more, in a selfish way, much more profitable. So yeah, we have metrics about that. Definitely, we have.
You want to come in?
The green. I don't know what that is.
It's the Greater Green, where they pedestrianised and created the trees area.
Oh, the one the next to the where when there's the embankment. That the thing that, because I've been traveling around quite a lot in the city center, but I exactly don't know which one you're referring to, because I know it is next to the river.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's great. I mean, I think it's very nice. I mean, at least the part that I know, which is quite next to yeah, it's near the canal. Exactly. It's that area. It's nice. Thing is, I'm leaving the day after tomorrow, but yeah, but definitely, actually, I'm taking my day to go to Peak District tomorrow, because the last thing that but I would be, I mean, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, excellent, excellent.
Next time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, I felt so good here that I'm trying to I've started making up excuses for myself and for the university to come back next year. So yes, definitely. Definitely. All right. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure you're going to hang around for a bit afterwards,
Yep.
Carlos, and if people have any questions. But thank you for giving up your time for this, and thank you to everyone for coming along. Much appreciated. And we'll demonstrate our thanks in a very traditional way.
Thanks to you all.